Gyökeres,
in a position like
sorry to
that,
cut you.
your
Go on.
self-belief is so important.
This is what I'm saying. This is where, because you look at Gyökeres, he's had in life, it's not the good stuff that makes us, it's not getting the job that you lot want, getting all of that. As everybody knows, it's the setbacks. Gyökeres has had setbacks. You didn't even, everybody looks at Coventry. Go and look at Mark Robbins. If anyone cares, go on YouTube and just read the random, or watch the better yet, the random post-match comments from his time at Coventry. He didn't start playing straight away, so he had adversity there. Brighton buy players from Africa, Asia, South America, wherever, Scandinavia. They get all these players. They bought him. It never worked out. He was languishing in the under-21s. I think he went on loan at Swansea that breeded mixed success. Obviously, he's had a high at Sporting now type of thing. So like you said, you're right. You've had the highs and the lows. You've got that kind of headspace. Sesko, I'm not going to say he hasn't gone through adversity, but like Egal is saying, there's a lot of those kind of things you haven't. And you know what, for me as well, bro, when I look at Sesko and when I look at Gyökeres, do you know what the biggest thing I learned from both of this is? It's actually these football clubs, including us and every club. In fact, the business and the nature of football is scummy, because what did we hear with Gyökeres? Gentleman's agreement. What's in cold-hearted writing? 100 million euros release clause. What did we hear last season? Sesko, you're going to get, bearing in mind his previous deal, he had a 60 million release clause. He's probably an Arsenal player if that stays there. Oh, we'll give you a new deal, give you some money, gentleman's agreement, don't watch nothing. What's happened now? I'm not necessarily saying it's wrong, because if I'm in Leipzig's or Sporting's case, and like you mentioned, if Cunha's going for this and that's going for that, and the English clubs are involved and the striker market isn't flush with talents, I'm going to get the amount of money I need. But they've shot themselves in the foot. But you are right. The fact that Gyökeres' experience is a good thing. Do you think, Gyökeres is going to start ahead of Kai Havertz? Because that was something I thought with Sesko. Oh, maybe Sesko allows him to kind of, balance the game time out. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not really here for this Kai Havertz. I big him up, but I'm not here for this. Kai Havertz has to start the first game of the season. Get Gyökeres in early pre-season. You do your thing. When he needs a rest, if it's not happening, then you make changes. But where do you stand with the Kai Havertz and Gyökeres thing? And what does that mean for Arteta as well?
I like it. I think people need to realize Kai Havertz in a year from now could be potentially gone. This is a 1-year experiment.
We have heard rumors about that.
Yeah, this is a 1-year experiment to see if Gyökeres and Havertz can coexist, if Havertz can be rotation for the striker position. And I thought about it myself. Do we have any other real striker options if Havertz was to leave?
Yeah, fine one, isn't it? Bring my Eze and make him play false nine.
Because we would be back to square one if Gyökeres were to get injured. So Havertz staying for one more season, for this upcoming season.
Havertz is staying, man. In terms of depth and 2 games a week, 3 games in 10 days, we're gonna need Kai. As I said, big up Rory. As I said on the show I did with Rory, if we just use the first 10 games of the season, right? Let's just say for 9 of those, it's plain sailing. We're winning, we're scoring goals. Gyökeres is bagging. That's 9 games, right? What if game 10 rocks up? Gyökeres is on the pitch, this one's on the pitch, that one's on the pitch. It's just not happening. Man are having bad games. There's just not solutions. You look on your bench, Kai Havertz comes off the bench, bags a goal, we keep it moving. It's them kind of games, yeah. You see, like there's games where you look back in May of the following year and you're like, oh, maybe we didn't lose, but maybe we could have won or lost the title in these kind of games. That's where I want to see the kind of squad players. I mean, my hot take is I expect to see Kai Havertz in midfield. I actually think there's a reality where I'm not saying Odegaard will be dropped, and I more want to see Eze and maybe Rodrygo, who can play in other roles, playing that 10, right? But I think Kai Havertz might play in that position just behind Gyökeres, and then you've kind of got 2 big men lumping it long, operating in that regard. Maybe Odegaard or even Havertz, for this example, he's going to have to do more of the burden in terms of general play, and then you've got Gyökeres in areas that can help. And I would also say with Gyökeres as well, you know me, I'm past that point of Martinelli needs a left winger, he needs this, he needs that, but he likes to pull out to the left. The last time Martinelli was half decent, we had a striker pulling out to the left, no?
Martinelli will get so much more assists, more freedom, and more space in behind with Gyökeres available in this team, because there was no
sacrificial lamb.
There was no central focus, and Kai Havertz will now be able to come in and have less pressure on him, because when are people going to realize 65 million is not much? If I'm not mistaken, Nico Gonzalez against Man City for a similar price. Now they're already trying to bin him off.
Come on, Egal, man. It's a lot.
Bro, there's much worse players who've gone for 100 million in Jack Grealish, and people still talk about Kai Havertz as if he's a bigger flop than Jack Grealish. I'm sorry, I'm
I
not
hear you with
hearing
that
it.
because he was signed for 100 million, but like in terms of player, Jack Grealish is better. But
Why
I
do
do
people
think
not
you're
speak
right.
about Jack Grealish's price tag and him more than they speak about Havertz?
Yeah, no, I hear that. I hear that. I
Why
hear
don't
that. But
people? Why don't
we
people
did
speak
overpay.
about?
Come on, man. We
Why
overpaid
don't
for
people
Kai
speak
Havertz.
about the fact that Nico Gonzalez went for so much money in the summer transfer in
Because I
the
don't get
in
engagement,
January?
Egal. You know this. You talk about Arsenal and Man United, clicks, engagement, bills are being paid.
Even Chelsea, how many players have they bought for 20, 30 million who don't even sniff their first team?
They just buy any winger with single plats over there.
At this point, we need to start realizing that 65 million is the going rate for a player who you might not deem to be the best, but still there's going to be risk. If you
Now
want
we
to go,
bumped
if
ourselves
you
for
want a
Kai
sure
Havertz. Let's
thing,
be real, man.
if you want a sure thing in football, there's almost no sure things in football. We could sign Rodrygo and he could flop. I'm not saying
God
he
forbid.
will, but he could. So all this stuff about show ambition, show this. Liverpool did not show any ambition last summer. They won the league. You do need some level of things going your way. I'm not saying everything went Liverpool's way. I'm not saying they were lucky. I'm just saying them not having to face any major injuries to some of their key players because they didn't really strengthen. Chiesa is not really a good backup for Mo Salah.
Yeah,
Mo
they did
Salah.
Onslaught dirty. That's why they need to give Onslaught all the money and all the things this year as well, really.
Arsenal did Arteta dirty last summer.
Yeah.
But you know something?
Everybody did
People
themselves
blame
dirty.
Arteta for signing Calafiori. People blame Arteta for signing Mikel Moreno. When
I'm not gonna lie,
Arne
Egal.
Slot gets no
Egal, I'm
signing,
not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not saying you're wrong, but we have to be honest. The Athletic, which is a mouthpiece of the football club, they did say people internally had concerns about spending that much on Calafiori. Arteta pushed for that. The same with Mikel Merino. Now, I like Calafiori. Merino's been cool, but we can't do the Arteta is a sacrificial lamb thing. I can't lie
you
to
know
you.
something? In the grand scheme of things,
But we fucked up
we,
last summer. Everything we're
we had
talking about that we want to do now, we should have done last summer. $1,000,000%.
in the grand scheme of things, we had a major injury crisis in the left back defensive area last season. And imagine if we didn't have the
That's why
extras
I'm
on.
happy with Calafiori, but it was said.
I think that was more of an indictment on Kieran Tierney and Tomiyasu not being trustworthy.
Everyone's got a whole blame, man. You're right on that. You know, you're right on that. And while I
And
think it's kind of
also,
harsh on
why do
Tommy
people
Yasu, he
keep
needed to
asking
go.
like Deluded? If you level up in life, certain things in your life are no longer going to be as useful as they used to be. For example, if you have a gym membership, right? And you're paying this gym membership on a regular basis, but then you move into a place where there's like a public gym for your either condo or wherever, you're gonna now start using that public gym. You're not necessarily gonna still go to that same old gym. Or if you have a treadmill at your house, or if you have something in your house that you're using for a long time, but then eventually you no longer need it because you now have another service that will allow you to utilize that better. Why are people still complaining? Because you've upgraded in life. That expense was
Some
not a
people
waste
can't
of
be,
money.
but Egal, you know,
That expense was not a waste of money because at the time you needed to pay that money.
there's a lot of people that are not reasonable. Like I like Calafiori. I'm just saying that is something I've always maintained. I think we've got false depth defensively, and I'm going to mention this one more time, Miguel, until it happens and we're on the stream. I still willing to bet you that we sign a left back. But away from that, though, in fact, speaking of left backs and defenders, what do you make of Gabriel Heinze being announced? Me, I like his passion. Just from I'm not no expert on him, but just by browsing, my hot take is I think he might push Mikel Arteta to play some young players. And thirdly, I like it because it's something different. It's a new voice. You're seeing what City got over there. Colo Torres rocked up. They got the ex-Liverpool guy. I think we kind of need that. But yeah, man, what do you make of that?
All I can say is new faces, new people in the dressing room can only help us. It can only help us because we've been here for the last couple of years. We've done well, but sometimes new voices, new names, new people in the dressing room can just make
New
things a lot better.
perspectives.
Yeah. And he's a little bit more experienced. Hopefully he's somebody who can ruffle some feathers, and if he feels like we're not doing the best, he's able to challenge the people's opinions, because a lot of people have felt like Arteta, with Carlos Cuesta being younger than him and him basically giving him his main first big job, that he
And
might
you
have
know what's so funny,
loyalty
girl?
and
They're wrong on
not
that.
challenging Arteta.
They're wrong on that because you speak to anyone around the club, yeah, and I could tell you for a fact, Carlos Cuesta on a regular basis, like all of the coaching staff, challenges Mikel Arteta. Mikel Arteta welcomes that like a lot of Pep managers do. Of course, you know, me and you could be, I could be your assistant or you could be mine, and a guy was telling me, oh, put Joe Blogg's left wing, and I'm not listening. He's shown me everything, and I'm not listening. Ultimately, I'm gonna live or die by by that. And the one thing I would say as well, on top of all of that, would also be, I'm not saying Gabriel Heinz hasn't got ambitions to maybe be a manager or whatever in his own right, but because he's a bit older, maybe there's a bit more stability. He kind of wants to stay here. You know, Arteta probably saw in Carlos Cuesta how he was under Pep Guardiola. So it is ways, and I mean, it's the nature of the game. We can't act like we haven't seen changes before. We've seen medical dons F off. We've seen things, and in the grand scheme of things, nobody don't care about that. Before I ask you, go on.
Did you see the Anthony Gordon stuff?
Is there anything significant, or have they just said that we like him?
Can I pull it up?
Yeah, pull it up. But before you do that, yeah, one love Elijah for the super chat. Appreciate you, DG. Do you think going for man called him Mandudu is Berta / Arteta way of saying to Wanyeri signed a new deal on our terms or will replace? No, I don't think the two are necessarily interlinked. Of course, if you're Wanyeri, you might be thinking, oh, you know what? There's a lot of attackers coming in. But love for the super chat. I don't think it correlates.
You know what it is, Elijah? I think it's really because his wages he would come in as our lowest paid player. And they're like 23 years old, coming in as the lowest paid player. He would probably be one of the last players on the bench.
Are you talking about Madueke?
They're saying his transfer fee is worth it because his wages are so low.
You're talking about Madueke, right?
Yeah, he's getting paid less than 55K.
I'm not gonna lie, you know, Rory said this as well. If Madueke is on 50 grand a week, yeah, and there's also been rumors he's willing to keep the same wages, I hear that, and that's great as a football fan. But in this life, we all are here to make money. We all need money to succeed. If your agent, who's allegedly a super agent, you come to Arsenal and you ain't got closer to 100 grand, I think you've bumped yourself because you are 23, you are English, you do all of these things. But
that's because Arsenal is going to pay the transfer fee. Chelsea want like 40 million. He really doesn't have a leg to stand on. We're paying 40 million to bring you here. You got to stay on.
Of course, you got a leg to stand on. You're going to want me to sign a 4 or 5 year deal. What do you mean? Especially when you're going to let players go.
You're coming here off the back of a 40 million pound investment, and you've already agreed.
Got fuck all to do with me. I'm an England international.
You got Saka, you got Martinelli, you got Havertz, you got Trossard. Only people
I need to be getting more than whatever Fabio Vieira's on, my boy.
There's only 4 people ahead of you right now. No, he's not getting more than what Lokonga's on, which is 55 mil. 55K.
Listen, I'm an Arsenal fan. I hope that, but I'm just saying, if I was his agent, I'm pushing for 90. But because I've seen
he's young, he has a whole career ahead of him. I think
maybe the club have learned. How did Reece Nelson get 100 grand?
Bro, they're not even gonna give Norgard more than 80K a week. They're giving they gave
yeah, because he's his age. This is a man that's 23.
They gave Zubamendi 100K a week. I think right now the new people in charge are fixing up the wage bill while we're still challenging.
Don't get it twisted. Egal, you're speaking facts. That needs to happen 100%. What people forget, and I'm not reducing Berta to this because Berta's footballing experience and what he's done speaks for itself. We love it. But he comes from a finance background. You don't think that made the Cronkies go, oh my God, like I'm on that? Of course, there's a remit of obviously bringing in players, renewing deals, pivoting away from certain deals, but 100% fixing up the wage bill. You mentioned Kai Havertz, you mentioned Gabriel Jesus. I don't want to say their names, but the Martinellis of this world, the Martin Odegaards, it'll be interesting to see not just this summer, but the next 12 months.
I'm happy about that.
We'll get into Martinelli. We'll get one winger at a time, my guy. We're parking off the Madueke thing for just a second, people, because Egal wants to speak on something.
Bro, why doesn't this go away? It doesn't go away. It keeps being brought up. Does it have something to do with Ethan's agent being the same agent as him? Maybe.
There you have it. There you have it. Then obviously that could help us. We might be able to float conversations about Gordon. But there you have it. There you have it.
No, but David Ornstein keeps mentioning him.
He does.
Every day keeps mentioning Anthony Gordon. And I'm not gonna lie to you. I like Eze. I like Rodrygo. Anthony Gordon, I would say, is third on that list.
He's an upgrade on Martinelli. I can't.
But he would cost more money than Eze. Is Anthony Gordon make sense?
And again, I've said this to you before. I've got no evidence to go off. There's no CV for me to go off. I just feel it's my hot take. I obviously Arsenal versus Newcastle, and like when they're playing, it's a bit argy bargy. It's become a bit of a derby and stuff. But I think it's above board. I genuinely think Arsenal's board and Newcastle's board do not see eye to eye. It doesn't matter if they see eye to us. My point being, on top of the English tax, the premium they want on Gordon, if this was to happen, we've probably got to add a couple more percentages. I got excited for a second. Then you mentioned the part that they have the same agent. You never know when we're in negotiations with his agent. Wanyery's agent around a new deal, they might say, "Oh, what's Gordon like? Do you think he want to move to London?" A bit like what we heard when we signed Zubimendi. We was talking about Marino. We was floating that, but just based off the last sentence, I'm not taking stock into it. Of course, fuel to the fire, because you're all right. Like Ornstein keeps saying, we've got admiration for Anthony Gordon. We've got admiration for Anthony Gordon, but I think you got more chance of Rodrygo, and I don't even think our opportunities of Rodrygo are that high, really. Of course, I want to be wrong, but let's get back into Madueke, man. Do you think he's a good signing? And what if Arteta wants him? What if Arteta suggests him? We heard he wanted him last summer.
Honestly, bro, it's super.
You got to back the manager, man. You got to trust the process again.
It's super annoying. I don't want him.
Why? But Arteta wants him.
I just simply don't think he is anywhere near our top 4 options in our team, even if he came in today. So I think this would be taking away from our budget towards getting either Eze and Rodrygo, and that's the main reason why I don't want him.
I can't disagree. And you know what? Rodrygo is one thing, and I need a lot, but I think I need a lot to believe in that. Eze, it feels like if we just front up the cash, make the payments in favorable terms, we could get it. You see, if you don't get Rodrygo, like we assume Gyökeres is done, the only way I'm kind of accepting of Madueke is if you get me my Eze, because Eze can play all about the place. At least I can say right now in July, Eze is an upgrade on what we have off that left-hand side. With Madueke, not really. Now, if there's a reality, they go sign a left winger and a right winger in Madueke, and he mix and blends and he's in the squad, great. He is only 23. I will give him a chance. It's more of a squad raiser, to which I say, obviously, you mentioned there the wages might make sense, but are you going to spend 40, 50 mil? Really? Does it make sense? I'm not sure. Somebody said Madueke is better suited than Rodrygo. You can't be an Arsenal fan. You don't want good things for us, man. So there's Madueke. Apparently, Arsenal, Mikel Arteta is a big fan of his. He looked into signing him last summer. He even if his best position is as a right winger, Arteta believes he can develop him into a great left winger. If Arteta wants him, that's fair enough. Arteta hasn't said that. Like, should you be wrong for not wanting him then? If the manager, don't you go back the manager? He's finally getting players to have a stronger side, like we said earlier.
I think the manager is. I'm sorry, Deluded. I just kind of got rattled by something right now.
Why? What happened?
I got a YouTube warning over a Saliba video from years ago. I was like, "What the hell?"
Appeal it.
What? I'm gonna appeal it. But I'm gonna have to talk about it later. As for this, I'm not gonna lie, Deluded. I just don't want Nani Madueke because I feel like I don't know how much better he can get. I feel like Ethan's already better than him, or just as good as him. But
it's only 23.
I get the logic. I get the logic that he's young. I get the logic that he's going to be on low wages. I just don't get the logic of paying the transfer fee that Chelsea wants.
I reckon Chelsea will lower their demands by, like, again, I don't know how this stuff works. I'm not in the negotiating table, but if we believe they want 50 million and we've got 40, let's be honest, we're repeat customers. We're loyal customers to Chelsea. So they might say, you know what, we'll got you a little deal. We'll see you next year.
Season where we don't sign a Chelsea player next year, please.
I don't think so. Crucially, though, Ornstein did say at this moment in time, there is no talks between Arsenal and Chelsea for Madueke. I actually think we're going to end up signing him for what it's worth. We've spoken about.
I think we sign him and Eze, and that's our wing options.
So then you can't believe we're getting Rodrygo then?
No. I don't think we're getting both Rodrygo and Eze.
Fair play. But
people keep telling me Rodrygo's going to happen. I think Arsenal would sacrifice the Eze deal to get Rodrygo, and it seems like the deal that's going to guarantee might happen at this moment in time is Nani. I've accepted the fact that Nani Madueke is probably going to be an Arsenal player.
Yeah, no, trust the process, trust the manager. This could be a level raiser. He just won a European trophy with Chelsea. He's 23, plays for England. He could be a left winger. You got to back the manager. He's getting players he wants. You mentioned
there's no guarantee he can get any better, though. There's no guarantee that he's.
But the manager believes he can. You got to back him.
The only hope is that we've not bought a Chelsea player that's this young before. Majority of them have been older. That's the only positive about it. Maybe it's
The only
different.
positive, Egal, is that we can pray in it and hope God blesses us with something in it. That's all I would say. We've gone over Eze. I'm not going to bore you because I think, I can speak for you. We all want Eze. We hope it all makes sense and whatnot. And we get that one over the line. Rodrygo, it seems like there's a lot of clubs. Remember when I told you PSG will get involved for this guy? You didn't want to listen. You did not want to listen, Egal. I told you they get involved.
It doesn't make sense for PSG.
It makes sense.
No, it doesn't. For him, it doesn't make sense for him to go to PSG.
For both, it makes sense. I promise you, it makes sense.
No, it doesn't. Why would it make sense for him to go to PSG at what do you call it? At this age, when they already have 4 players who can play his position?
I hear you with that. And obviously, he hasn't been getting a lot of football at Real Madrid, but he's not necessarily scared of that.
They're not even going to sign a replacement for him at Real Madrid, as reported.
Yeah, no. That's Real Madrid. It looks like he's going. But if you're him, you've kind of gone through this at Real Madrid before, so you're not scared of competition. They've just won the Champions League. There's great players. They do swap their wingers around as well. And you might caveat that with, okay, I might not play off the left-hand side, but I might have greater importance in this team than I'm going to get at Real Madrid, where you got Bellingham and Mbappe. It seems like the young, like the young football manager wonder kids, the Mustentados, the Endricks, they're rising in prominence under Xabi Alonso. There is belief that he's going to move, but everyone's going to throw their hat into the ring. Us, City, probably even Liverpool and Chelsea, whoever they're able to get.
More about spending the money wisely, or spending the money wisely and getting Premier League experience, or getting the player who you think is better that has sell-on value.
Wait, say that again.
Eze or Rodrygo? Which one do you think is the better deal? Which one do you think is less of a risk?
I think we just need to forget the Madueke thing and get both. Me personally, I love Rodrygo, but if you were telling me I'm going to put all my eggs in the Eze basket. I just think it's more realistic. It could be done quickly. I think Eze wants to know where he's playing next season. There's a release clause, so there's a ballpark figure. He's not at the Club World Cup. I think too much domino. I've said this to you before. I think too much dominoes needs to fall for Rodrygo to obviously work. Now, don't get twisted. Eze and Rodrygo are going to be on handsome wages, but Rodrygo, you're going to probably have to change your wage structure. You're gonna have to make him your highest earner. I want both, but I'm probably gonna put more eggs into the Eze basket. I just feel that's able to get done. But we'd all love both. If it was up to me, just cancel the Madueke thing and throw your hat into this kind of ring. Apparently, we're not even the only club in the Premier League keeping an eye on him, people. You mentioned it there, Gal, that they're not looking for a replacement. Much may depend on what Arsenal have left in the budget after a deal for Gyökeres is struck. It remains to be seen.
I'm scared about giving Rodrygo 300K a week. That's scary to me.
I like work, man. Not my piece.
In the case
it comes with the territory, we got to give him the bread.
In the case that we sign him for 77 million and we give him 300K a week, he immediately will mess up our wage structure. And Saliba's going to have to get 300. Saka's going to have to get 300. Anybody else?
But this is the table you want to stand in.
But then you're muddying the waters, because you really only want your best of your best on 300, where Rodrygo comes in, our most experienced winner, but there's no guarantee that he is the most important figure in the team.
But you just said he'd be our most, earlier in the stream, you said he'd be our most important player. Make it man.
Based financially.
You're going to have to do that. If you want these players, you're going to have to do that. You're not wrong in that we need to look after the wages, which I don't want to keep mentioning them, but the Kai Havertz's, the Gabriel Jesus's, Reece Nelson on 100K. If you want to sit at the big boy table, you got to pay big boy fees. You have to do that. At some point, there's going to be exceptions to the rule.
I'm just talking about it from a perspective of cost and best cost analysis of what's the best deal.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but then to go back to what you asked me about Eze, throw your hat in the Eze basket and F off with the Rodrygo thing, then, innit?
Eze, Anthony Gordon, Rodrygo. Anthony Gordon and Rodrygo are going to cost you the most transfer fee. Eze is going to cost you the least transfer fee. Wages, Anthony Gordon is going to cost you the least wages. Eze second, Rodrygo the most. So based on that alone, I think the best deal for Arsenal would be get Eze. Then the next best deal would actually be get Anthony Gordon, and the worst financial deal for Arsenal would be if we got Rodrygo. Now, don't get me wrong, Rodrygo is amazing, but is he going to be returning the investment as well as Eze could potentially, who's already played in the league, who's already, I think we could see him playing in that left wing position and being a facilitator, where Rodrygo, I like the guy. I want him, but I'm just scared about spending 70, 80 million on him, giving him 300K a week, and then
I
him,
hear that,
him
but
coming to the
we've given
team,
some costly
him
contracts to
coming to the
players at this
team.
club. We brought in Kai Havertz for 65. We brought in Marino. We brought in Calafiori. So we've shown that we can, like, if we have the finances. If we're going to sit, I'm not saying you're wrong because I think we're saying the same thing. If we want to sit at this big boy table, we have to spend that money. Of course, we're kind of interlapping. You're
No, but I
talking about
get why the club is reluctant
yeah, no,
to.
I'm not saying you're wrong. You're talking about the finances. It does
Yeah,
come into
if
play.
he was coming in on 250K a week, it makes such a big difference in our negotiations for Saliba and Saka and everybody else going forward. We're not only talking about
That's
Rodrygo
already
flopping.
impacted because the players that are already at the
We're
club
not
on
talking
big
about
money.
Rodrygo flopping. We're also talking about everybody else demanding more now.
That's the belly of the beast, and that is something just based on what Kai Havertz and Jesus are on, and actually a certain man that's left this club, whose name we won't say, that was probably a factor already, and that is something that's going to happen. Which is why when you ask me out of Rodrygo and Eze, obviously I'd love Rodrygo. It's going to sell a lot of shirts, it's going to uplift the fans, going to do all of that, but